sponsoring ZAB Media Festival 2024. We are happy to announce J. Dot as our proud partner.
TapMat, Tibet, DKT, and Himani have also been keen supporters of the event. Let's mention Nishman, Hope by Popular, FM 91, Kasre Shireen for being our styling, hydration, radio, and refreshment partners. And how can we forget our giveaway partners Crispo, Shangri-La, Body Bar, Jade, Vouch 365, and Nikita.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. Your favorite hosts, Alicia
And Yasin.
are back. Right now, we're going to start the third day, so I will pass it on to Yasin.
The past 2 days have been an academic outburst of a lot of learning and networking. I hope that this event has been every bit useful for you as it's been for me. What do you think, Alicia?
Honestly, although it was very tiring, I think I learned a lot from the last 2 days, as I am sure a lot of the people in the audience have. And once again, we would like to thank the faculty for providing the valuable input and lending support in making this event successful.
Now, moving on to our first panel. From Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, to Game of Thrones, we've all seen magic. This next masterclass is a peek at the wizardry behind this craft.
Through visual effects, one can create worlds that only exist in our imagination, breathe life into dragons, unicorns, or even eight-legged spiders that will haunt you in your dreams.
Or my personal favorite, the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park, the aliens in War of the Worlds, E.T., the shark.
Enough about Spielberg, man. So let us introduce our distinguished guest for this day's VFX Masterclass.
This fantastically talented VFX artist is the visionary behind Parallel Studios, co-founder of Dr. Saab, Pros Meet the World, and the mastermind behind some of the most groundbreaking VFX work in the industry, making immersive 3D visual effects that pop out of the screen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Danish Hasan.
Thank you for the kind introduction. I hope I can see everyone because this session is meant to be interactive and I want to have like eyes on in the individuals who I'm talking to. Before I start, thank you all for coming here today, for taking time out and taking interest in my work, and for Sir Saklan and Sir Faraz for inviting me. I am very thrilled to be able to share my experience with you guys, and hopefully we can go back home and take something of value and inshallah get better at what we all do. So without further ado, I'll begin. Hello. So today's talk is more about the future of filmmaking. I wanted to base this on something that we all are thinking about on a day-to-day basis. I feel like in today's climate, where we are subjected with so much information through social media and whatever means that we have access to, we pose or we are asking a lot of questions internally that need answers. And I feel like the most existential one of them is what happens to us in the future. I have no idea what is going to happen in the future, but I can definitely tell you my experience and what I've been through and how it has shaped my career and what I intend to do in the next decade and what I've learned from the past decade. Sorry. This is the real me. That was a version of me that I thought that I look like internally. But now I've kind of come to terms with the term VFX artist, and I've kind of picked a lane. Before, a few years ago, I was struggling with the fact of labeling myself with a particular label, calling myself a director or a cinematographer or an editor. I was always confused as to what my next or what my title should be. With a raise of hands, can I get an idea of how many of you know me from YouTube? Okay. And I'm assuming that none of you have ventured into the depths of YouTube and found out what Dr. Saab is. Okay. So it goes to show that there's a lot of stuff that happens in the background, and a far less gets to be seen. And whatever is the most loudest and the most, I would say, grabs the most attention is not necessarily the whole truth. You have to dig a little deeper and kind of see where, the devil's in the details. Before I ramble on and bore you, I'd like to show you what I've been up to for the past 10, 11 years. It is the work that you're about to see is primarily focused on post-production and the VFX workflow, because this talk is focusing on that aspect alone. And I would want to give you a glimpse of that in 2 minutes. So what you guys saw was a quick summary of what I've been up to for the past 11 or 12 years. I guess that would give you a little bit of faith in my abilities as opposed to the start that was a little bit of like a rough one. I'm not used to speaking in front of a crowd, so excuse my ums and ahs. The three images behind me, I wanted to start with these to kind of give you an idea of where I was back in 2008. Roughly around, all of these images were either created or captured within that time. The reason I'm giving you some context is I believe that in order to understand the future, you must truly absorb what experiences you've had in the past and what paved the way for you to land wherever you landed. The image on the left is something that I drew inspiration from the real world. I was into, as you can tell, I'm a car enthusiast, and I love to know anything and everything about them. And it started with the curiosity of, can I create something from nothing? And you will get to see eventually in the talk what my inspirations were to be able to get to this conclusion, or get to this stage where I wanted to create something out of nothing. The right image on the right is another, based on another sketch I made, but decided to level up a little bit and dove into the world of Adobe Illustrator. This is, believe it or not, I kind of surprised myself. This is my first ever attempt at understanding the Illustrator software. I learned that vector was a thing, and you could really create precise, beautiful imagery based on a tool that was relatively affordable, and it gave you immense control when it came to vector art. The image that you see below, the photograph, was taken when me and my college buddies went to a trip to Buttagram, and that was basically a shot that I took outside of a train where I saw, these two people commuting on a roadside in the distant farmland. And basically, this is a circle that I feel like I continue to this day, where I look around for inspiration and see what I can create from the tools that I've been given by the people who, the masterminds behind these software, the creatives that have put in the time and effort to give us these tools so that we can create worlds that you just saw a moment ago. So this is kind of where we are today. Like a year ago, I was probably one of those people that would feel really confident in saying what is real and what is CG and what is edited. Fast forward a year since then, I don't think there's anybody on the planet that can, confidently say what they're seeing online or what they were seeing displayed on pixels, whether to be computer generated, whether to be real, or whether to be something that was crafted by hand. So this is where we are today. I mean, the fact of the matter is, this is the reality and there's no going back. So where do we go from here? I mean, the path is, I will talk about the future and where I feel like we're all headed, but before I get into that, I wanted to give a brief intro about where I was and where I started from and what my inspirations were. As you can see from the images on the left, this is what I grew up looking at, spending my time in. Yeah, I'm a 90s kid, so those are my inspirations and those are my, that's where I spend most of my time. So what did I do when I was bored, or when I didn't know what to do, when I was going to school, but I was bored throughout the whole process, nothing was inspiring me, I was confused, everybody was telling me what to do, and there was a lot of noise in my head as to, there was no direction that I thought that was, I needed some direction. So the thing that I would often go back to, or the thing that would inspire me rather, was, again, like I mentioned, the three images in the beginning, life really inspired me, and I looked at stuff around me, and primarily at home. That's where it all began. I feel like my beginning, I am extremely privileged to be in a position where I had family members and parents that were extremely skilled in the arts, and that was something that I grew up with, looking at. I can remember as far as I can remember. So the image on the top you see is artwork that my mom recently did a few years ago, and this has been something that I've always been looking at ever since I grew up. So that was the base, that was the inspiration that piqued my interest back in the day movies, cinema, gaming, and art at home. Fast forward to present day, I don't think there's anybody in the room that can say that they have a difficulty finding things that they are interested in. I mean, in today's day and age, it takes a few seconds for you to click through something and find what you're looking for. So honestly, my inspirations, apart from the movies and the family influence that I mentioned, has been exponentially vast. I cannot start to label the things or pick names as to where I struck inspiration from. A, because I'm bad at names. I don't remember names very much. I'm a visual guy, as you can tell. But yeah, internet, YouTube in particular, has been my source of inspiration. So why am I like this? Why am I able to do what I do? I feel like it's an important question that I feel like differentiates a person who is not creative versus the person who is. I feel like that's curiosity, and that's trying to understand things beyond what you perceive them to be. So when I was young, I used to take things apart, and I had an innate curiosity for technology. I feel like that goes hand in hand with VFX work, as you can tell. My dad wasn't really impressed by the curiosity, and he always was kind of annoyed by that. But you know, I don't know if you can tell. How many of you can tell what the image on the top right is? Any guesses? What's your best guess about what that is? Anybody? That's basically a VCR inside of a VCR. Technology back then, I feel like was tangible. I feel like you could open up and see things how they worked. I feel nowadays it's simplified, and I feel like that's something that's making it harder for us to really feel and experience things. But that was when I grew up, but I could actually see how things worked, and yeah. And of course, like the person who mentioned in the beginning, his source of inspiration, as everybody else's, has been Hollywood and what they've been able to create ever since its inception. I feel like that the ways that we were able to see huge, amazing creatures on screen, vast landscapes, and the surrealism that we were able to experience was something that always intrigued me. But it's all not fun and games. I wanted to keep this talk pretty real and pretty honest. I feel like I mentioned, there are inspirations everywhere, and appearances can be deceiving. It's not that I magically landed into a position where everything worked and everything made sense. I can tell by the faces that I see right now and the stage that you're in. There's a lot of ifs and buts and a lot of unknowns, and I was the same. There's nothing different that I feel like I can say that I was sets me apart from you guys. I feel like the only thing that you can tell by looking back is that some of it made sense to me, and I landed in a position where I get to be on stage and talk to you guys. So yeah, if we can go down the points, I dropped out of university, got the entrepreneurial bug and defiance, and as some of you might know, or I hope you've not experienced, anger is quite the motivator to kind of move forward and prove people wrong, especially it comes from a closer circle or an inner circle. I feel like when you have a point to prove, you kind of trailblaze your way through problems, and not the most healthiest way, but yeah, that's one of the reasons why I was able to kind of push through. I don't list this very casually and as something that I feel like I'm really proud of, but that's a circumstance and that's a reality that I feel like I was in back in 2012 is when I finally decided to change my lane. I was studying to be an electronics engineer, as no surprise there. Yeah, so what happened? What didn't work? I feel like a lot of things, hence me making such a big life decision. I feel like when I look back, it's mostly I'm in a place where I don't think that I'm valued. Like that is the core of where I feel like I started from. And fast forward 10 years, 11 years, I cannot explain to you how much that decision of listening to my gut feeling and honestly just looking within proved valuable to me. I mean, if there's anything else in the world that I feel like I can let go of, I feel like that would be at absolutely bottom of the list of trying to find your inner voice. I feel like that is one of the most strongest forces that you will have going through life. As you can imagine, I disappointed a lot of people. They weren't happy with, the alternative path. They were like, but we're going here, this is like, you get a fancy degree and, there's that job and then in 5 years, the car, the wife and the house, it's all that. So, tum kya karoge? I didn't have an answer back then, and I absolutely do today. And it's because of the wins. It's because of the small steps that I took along the way that I feel like gave me the confidence to really speak my truth and really keep moving forward. And for that, absolutely, there is without a doubt the most powerful alliance that you can have is positive people around you. I feel like this is getting a little philosophical, and I apologize if your expectations were focused on predominantly VFX. Trust me, I'll get there. We'll speak about that a lot more. But I do feel like a lot of the side that I'm speaking about right now gets missed often. And I feel like on a day-to-day basis, when I'm sitting in front of a screen and the client has expectations and I'm not meeting those expectations, or I'm having to find solutions to problems, I feel like the thing that I keep coming back to is that it's okay. And it's fine to kind of, not meet expectations. And it's always good to kind of have your inner voice lead the way. So along the way, I was fortunate enough to meet like-minded people that pushed me to, outside of my comfort zone. I was extreme introvert when I was, I would say 10, 12 years ago. I still am, but I feel like I'm much more confident in my own skin because of the jumps that I took. And I feel like it might seem like it took a long time for the people to turn around, and that was those fails were a really big dent in my public perception, but that kind of changed instantly as soon as the successes came in. I can remember as soon as I dropped out, it took me 2 months to start designing logos for a living, and I got a paycheck, and that kind of steamrolled into a whole career. And just the ability to kind of pass, just crossing that moment of 2 months where you feel like nothing makes sense and nothing will work, and just consistently going through, really snowballs. But yeah, you can't always, keep everyone happy. There will always be people who will be like, "Beta, doesn't make sense. It's all you'll fail. I'll tell you. You'll see." And for those people, I feel like you can respect their opinion, but like I mentioned, the biggest driving force I feel throughout your careers will always be your inner voice that you always have to keep calibrating. It's not that everybody is wrong all of the time or everybody is right 100% of the time. It's that what works for you, and you're the only person who can really gauge and make a judgment based on that. So be kind and follow your own path. So which brings me to present day. This was the AI that I knew back when I started. Like I've mentioned Illustrator twice, once in that illustration that I showed you, and the other for the logo career that I started with. This, of course, is, for those of you who don't know, Adobe Illustrator, and it's not AI that we get to hear every second of every second that passes by on social media nowadays. But that was yesterday, this is today. For those of you who don't know and who've not been following OpenAI, and I don't blame you, because I'm one of those people who is kind of taking a step back from social and trying to gauge the waters more steadily. I feel like there's a whole wave of excitement coming our way, and there's a lot of uncertainty as well. People who've been doing this for decades are fighting the fact that this is a disruptor that will take away their jobs. There are people who are getting into it fresh without any baggage, are really excited for the possibilities of the future. And I'm here to say that both of them are right. If you're afraid of things, your fears will eventually take you over. But if you embrace them, if you embrace the discomfort and the uncertainty and you face it head on, but what all I mentioned a few moments ago, then you will think of it as just another tool. This is what we're capable of producing by just putting in probably 10 to 15 seconds worth of prompts on a internet browser. If you were to ask me to create any of these scenes from scratch, me being a VFX artist about a year or 2 years ago, would have told you it'll probably take me a year to kind of understand the human anatomy and how a white male in his 80s looks. I would have had to do my research, kind of spend time trying to understand how, when an old man blinks, what happens to the wrinkles beside their eyes, how fast do they move, what are their mannerisms, and I'll probably just scratch the surface. There have been people who have been doing this for decades who are only now able to get results that are comparable to what AI is producing today. So I feel like what are we supposed to do in the interim before Sora gets released to the masses and everybody? It's fair game for everyone. They've democratized visuals or filmmaking for everybody, and it's become immensely accessible. So what do people like me and for people like you who are interested in the domain of VFX, what do we think? What do we feel like that needs to be done? To that, the simple answer is to stay calm and take a step back, look at what the people are doing, and make your own assessments. There's something that you can do today. This is a list of softwares that I've used apart from Unreal. That is something that I'm eventually getting into, but I wanted to mention that just because that's something that everybody's curious about, and they ask me a lot about whether I am into Unreal, do I want to get into Unreal. But my workflow has predominantly been these 5 softwares that you see around that. And I've made a whole career out of it over the past 10 years. I started with Premiere Pro, basically editing documentaries in the world of filmmaking, and that took me about 4 to 5 years to kind of grasp and truly understand what narrative filmmaking is all about, what documentation and docu-filmmaking is all about. Eventually started to get into After Effects when people weren't satisfied with the visuals that they were seeing and they wanted more. They wanted some, new transitions. They wanted slow-mo stuff. They wanted a lot of other things that I feel like at the time were like a sugar rush for the viewer base at that time. So After Effects kind of really, with the combination of Premiere Pro and After Effects, I was able to really infuse a lot of these things that people were wanting at the time, and it really accelerated, it really accelerated my entry into VFX. Supplemented by Photoshop, wherever that was required for moving images, and eventually getting into color work. And once I understood what I could do and how much I could manipulate real life through cameras, through editing, I started to jump into the world of 3D. That's when a little software known as Blender often confuses people, because when I just say I work in Blender, they're like, Blender mein kaam karte hain, matlab? To the layman, that's quite hilarious. But for those of you who don't know, this is a free software that is vowed to be kept free till the person who created it is with us. And because of this reason, because of the kind folks who were able to create software and make it available to the masses, I was able to get into the world of 3D and eventually start to supplement all of that into my workflow. In the center of all of this, you see AI in the middle, and if you're as confused as to how that fits into everything, a little bit of a note on that is that AI or machine learning has been ever present in these softwares for decades, but only now are we coming to come to terms with the word AI and trying to understand what that actually means. All it means is basically machine learning, and it's data that's fed for a specific task that machine does. I'm not an expert in AI, and I don't claim to be an expert, but I can tell you that it is going to penetrate into every domain, into every service, into every institution, into every process that we see around us, whether it be ordering food through your favorite app, buying your latest devices online, trying to understand a complex scientific theory that you are unable to comprehend. All of that will be aided by a artificial intelligence that has been trained for that specific task. So there's no getting out of, there's no avoiding it. So another way to look at AI or any software that you want to get into to be able to create the visuals that you want to create, tell the stories that you want to tell, is as simple as that. It's a tool. On the left, you see very basic cutting tools that a woodworker uses to manipulate wood into creating anything that they want to create. Starting with the complexity of rounded edges on the chair and keeping its structural integrity intact, and trying to push the boundaries of creativity through the form that it captures, is all done using experience and the tools that have been around for decades. What does modern day technology do to this process? All it does is it makes it extremely efficient, and it makes our creativity skyrocket. And limitations are no longer limitations anymore, and we feel like we can create anything for anybody, whether it's something that you put on a wall for aesthetic purposes, or you put out in a factory line where you want to increase efficiency. So it's not just the the beautification of the process, it's also efficiency. So it makes things really efficient and really, does not limit your creativity. So this is where I was back in the day when I started. I picked up a camera, 5D, a 5D Mark III, and shot something on camera and transferred the footage into a device that, could manipulate or could process that and would give you fair bit amount of control where you could shift or add cuts or manipulate what people would see. So you had the ability to craft a story based on what you were able to capture, but you had to physically take out a huge camera, add lenses to it, add batteries to it, and invest in a system, and then go back home or your studio and save money so you could get an editing software and a machine that could run that editing software. And it was a whole thing that you had to get into, and not everybody had access to great machines, and I'm sure you all struggle with that at some level. But that was where I started, and I could only do so much. Fast forward to present day, I feel like that transition is something that a lot of the industry experts are trying to fight, and the people up top are trying to incentivize everybody, the masses, and democratizing the ability to create content. And that struggle of holding on to the past and paving the way for future is something that will always be there, regardless of whatever technologies we have. But this is the present day. I feel like a lot of us who are privileged enough to have a machine that can edit images, and all of us, I'm sure all of you have phones, so it's becoming, the percentage of people who are able to afford this versus this is exponentially increased. So I feel like it's bringing access to a lot of people, and eventually what you see on the right is Apple's Vision Pro, a VR headset that is eventually going to change the interface from taking an image from a capturing device and bringing into a software, bringing into a computer where you edit it, versus completely happening real time in front of your face inside that one device. I feel like we are not too far away from that being a reality, and I feel like it's going to immensely accelerate what we're able to produce, and I feel like in a few years probably making our own avatars wherever that we feel like we want to take that, we want to base that in Karachi, so we could do that as well. But if the sky is the limit, then that's where we're headed. So a bit about creating worlds. I feel like I wanted to touch upon the tools that are available today and what you can create as of today. The scene that you see right now is a snapshot from Avatar. That's a concept art that I was able to, that piqued my interest. I feel like this is something a few decades ago, or even a couple of years ago, was something that was pretty impossible for a mere VFX artist to be able to create. But nowadays, with the help of AI and the tools that are available that are plugged into your favorite software of choice, are really accelerating the process, and it won't be I wouldn't say that it will be too far off when everybody in this room will be able to create something as good as this in a few years' time if they were to dedicate a little bit of time every day. I feel like it's not too far off. You might not... could I, by a raise of hands, get how you feel about that? Do you think that that is a reality, or do you think that that's still far away? Do you think that in 2 years' time you will be able to create this? How many of you believe that? Okay, cool. So I feel like that's something that I feel is on the horizon, and I'm excited for it, and would love to see what everybody creates. So I spoke about a lot of things today. I spoke about where I came from, and you guys got to see body of work, and the topic of today was future of filmmaking, and I feel like where it pertains to VFX, where are we headed? I hope after like the last few minutes that you spent listening to me, you have a little bit of a better sense of where we're headed in terms of what the possibilities are in the future. But I do feel like in order to really not worry about what lies ahead and to be ever present in what you can do today, I feel like these are a few guidelines that I practice by and I live by. And I feel like that helps me, keep the ease when I'm opening up social media every day and looking at my peers doing wonderful stuff. Some of them are in front of me today, and I look at their work, and I'm in awe with what they're able to create. But the little guy inside me is always insecure. He's always, what if I miss out? What if I'm not in the right circle? What if I'm not doing the right things? What if I am not able to do what I'm not able to do what I see other people doing? I feel like practicing gratitude and mindfulness is one of the top things that I feel like I've come to terms with. Sitting here today, I feel like we're already winners. We're already in a place where we have immense privilege, and we have the abilities, and we have the framework to be able to push ourselves to put ourselves into domains where we have not seen others go through. And I feel like I started this talk by stating the fact that when I was in my lowest, when things weren't working out for me, the one thing that I always came back to, and the thing that bugged me the most, was I felt like I wasn't valued. And I felt like, I am just occupying space, and there's nothing much that people, take from me or I could give them. So I feel like an important trait for you to be able to not have that feeling is to find things that you're really good at and help other people out and essentially be useful for them. This might seem like a very basic concept, and it's like, what is he talking about? Of course we want to be useful for other people. But it might not, it doesn't come as natural to people as you think it might seem, as you think it might. Because all we're doing in today's day and age is solving problems for other people. I feel like whatever tool you pick up, whether it be Blender, whether it be sticking to After Effects, whether it be still working on Premiere Pro and shaping up narratives, there is some use for those softwares and for the work that you do. The choice is yours to decide how useful that is going to be down the line and how much feedback you're getting with the people that you work with. A simple case study would be that if you are a freelancer who gets called in for video editing or photo manipulation work, say 10 times a month. Fast forward a year, you get called twice a month, and then fast forward another year, you don't get any calls. You can sit there thinking what went wrong, or you can take the data that you've been given and you can try and find usefulness in domains where there's movement, where there's eyes on, where there's attention. So you have to be fluid, and you have to be able to find yourself. You will find yourself in places where you are uncomfortable. Like, for example, I am right now in front of you on stage. It's fine, it's okay. But I feel like once you start to embrace the things that you feel, when you start to embrace discomfort, that's truly when you start to grow. I feel like that is something that students struggle with on a day-to-day basis, and there's discomfort all around us. But there's proactiveness and there's reactiveness. I feel like if we're more mindful of what our wants are and our desires are and how useful we can be for others, and we can be more focused on what we want to do, the discomfort along the way is just a reminder that you're doing something that most people won't. And it's essential for you to be feeling that discomfort, because nobody knows what the future is going to be. Nobody knows where we are going to be in the next, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months in this domain. But what I'm focused on is the fact that there are certain reasons that got me here, and I should never forget those reasons. I've been given the immense opportunity to be able to work with people, like-minded individuals that were able to push my career and also guide me with my own insecurities and my own flaws. So I feel like that is a very big factor into what my plans are in the future, to continue to do what I did the last 10 years, but also keep getting feedback from each and every one of you. And most of all, throughout this whole process, even if my face doesn't show it, most often not, I get the feedback that, why are you always so, why are you serious all the time? But I truly am really grateful and truly enjoy the process, and that's why I'm here today, and that's why I will continue to do what I do. And I feel like that is at the core of, why we do things. Okay, we enjoy them. We enjoy. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there who have absolutely no interest in this specific. You don't want to get into the nitty-gritties of crafting, creating a whole world from scratch. You'd rather go out there and experience and capture more. So everybody has their own, path that they have to follow, and I do feel like it comes from within. And there's a bigger list that I feel like I can keep adding on to, but I feel like this is predominantly what I feel like I live by. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for your time. I would like to open the floor up for questions. That I intended this session to be interactive, and I feel like I'm much more comfortable in a conversation rather than a monologue. So I would like to open the floor if anybody has questions regarding anything. Except you. Yes.
What do you think is the best software for VFX? What is the best? Like Unreal है, Blender भी है, it's free, but
Yeah.
paid and free overall, what's the best software?
Okay, that's a really good question. आपका नाम?
Aman.
Amar.
Aman, A-M-A-N.
AMAN. It's a very important question. I feel like I get asked this a lot. Whenever you see someone creating something in full form, you ask what the tools they use to get there. Specifically when it comes to CG, there's a plethora of options out there. There's 3D Studio Max, there's Maya, there's Blender, there's Unreal. I cannot say with conviction that the software, I cannot give you an answer specific to such a generalized statement. I can tell you that there's a place for every software. Like, I'm into woodworking. I don't know if you guys could tell, but I have a bunch of tools that are power horses for the specific jobs they do. For example, if you want to chop up or you want to saw up a piece of wood, your first thought is not going to go towards a multi-tool and whip out a small saw and just go at it for an hour. You would want to pick up a full-fledged chainsaw or a saw, whatever you can afford, and efficiently cut that wood and get the job done. I feel like understanding tools is vastly more important than picking them. So, I mean, you could endlessly debate whether, say, Cristiano Ronaldo is better or Messi is better, but you cannot take away the fact that they're both exceptionally effective football players. So, I mean, the question is important, but I feel like, it's not essential. Choice is yours. The option's out there. When you don't have an option, go with the first thing you can get your hands on. Anybody else?
Okay, so my name is Heather. I really enjoyed your talk, specifically when you were talking about the AI or uska jo impact on storytelling. So my question is, I think something that I ventured with a little bit, and I think I discovered related to AI, and I wanted to ask your take on it. That was I think we talk about AI's role in as a sort of a executor of the visual effects, not from the storytelling end. So I started with like a service or software, whatever you want to call it. It was called Pika Labs. So I made an AI story. It was generated by AI, and I had Pika Labs make it, like visuals just ke de. So I had this question in my mind, how do you see as a VFX artist, AI is also not only just taking the role of designing the visuals, but also the role of making the stories. Like it has the power to make the stories for us as well,
right,
as much as it has the power to show the visuals that we have the story for. So how do you see that as a VFX artist ke ek time aayega ke we have an AI prompt based story, and you have and I think AI can totally replace even a screenwriter, and as a VFX artist obviously you do receive some information ke kis tarah se usko karna hai. How do you see that as a VFX artist? Thank you.
Yeah. Great question. I feel like what you're speaking of is something in the realm of control and quality. I feel like it's tried and tested that anything that is achieved really quickly, its possibility, or rather its access to the masses is quite large. So if you want a service or a product or anything to stand out, you would need to do something that the others are not doing. I feel like if the common denominator is getting up, typing in the first thought that comes to your mind, and presenting a solution, then that is the most, I feel, derivative form of that process. I feel like AI is again a tool. It can only start from where you're starting from. And you will control, however, whatever the output is based on your own knowledge and what your understanding of that service or that product is for other people. So I feel like AI will never be the limiter. It will always be you and where you set your bar. So I hope that answers the question.
Hi, thank you for the talk once again. And my question has to do with, it's a more technical question. It has to do with render engines. And we often hear VFX artists talk a lot about how render engines have evolved, but I just want to know from you, because it's something that I always find very hard to understand when trying to learn more about 3D software. How does the evolution of render engines sort of, how has it helped you throughout time? Because we went from Mental Ray in the early 2000s to something like Octane Renderer now. So how has that evolution helped you as an artist?
Right. So you mentioned Octane and Mental Ray. That's something that I feel like I skipped altogether. You'll be surprised at how quickly and how effectively the softwares, the render engines have evolved over the last few years with the exponential, increase in compute power with the hardware nowadays, and with the optimization of software. I feel like what we're speaking of with every kind of workflow, whether it's whatever we're trying to create, it's feedback. Whenever you put in an input, you look at something and you think about it and then you reiterate. I feel like when it comes to render engines, all that is doing is giving me the results faster so I can reiterate faster. This is often a thing that we struggle with when it comes to client work and when there's obviously a deadline to everything. Previously, if most of you are not aware, we used to have blockouts where we would just see literal blocks of humans being animated from one point to another point with having little bit of detail on them, just to get an idea of what it would look like for an object to move from this, for example, a pan shot where we see a dinosaur like Jurassic Park, moving across the field. That was 20, 30 years ago. Now we can actually get you a complete model that is rigged, that is functioning, and that is actually pretty accurate to the movement of a dinosaur. We can put into a software like Unreal, literally just render it real time, and have the client sit with you and tell you right then and there, what needs to be improved. So previously, a process like that would take months, but now it's just become faster. So I feel like in the race, I don't like to use that term because I do feel like it's not a race against anybody, but I feel like we're all in a rush, and in that rush, we just want to get things done quicker. So it's just the renders are with the availability of render farms as well, and your existing machines getting faster. I think with the combination of that, is just become more iterative and quicker. That's the summary of that. Yes. Thank you. If there's anybody who has questions apart from VFX and would like to talk about anything else, I'm open. This is not a funnel talk on just VFX, by the way.
Sir,
जी.
सबसे अहम सवाल ये बताएं कि क्रैक सॉफ्टवेयर्स इस्तेमाल करते हुए कोई मसाइल आए आपको या आपने सारे ऑथराइज्ड सॉफ्टवेयर ही इस्तेमाल किए?
So thank you for asking that question. I feel like that has been one of my biggest struggles starting off early in my career. In the spirit of full disclosure, I am not a saint. I have used cracked software, and I'm not proud of it. But I do feel like the tools that were available at that time were far beyond what the market standard was when it came to meeting a certain quality. So, for example, if you were to use Premiere Pro versus any other software that was readily available, you were making a choice of actually being 4 times slower than your competitor near you. So, I mean, it's an ethical choice, and I feel like it's an obvious answer. If you can afford it, please buy it. If you cannot, wait till you can. Don't do what I did. Because I will tell you, and I feel like this is something that's pertaining, extrapolation of this conversation is we have to be very careful what expectations we set. We don't live in, say, California or New York or Toronto. We live in Karachi, Pakistan, and we need to set our expectations accordingly. I mean, if you were to set the limits high to the standard where we were aiming for the images that we just saw with Jurassic Park, the Avatar, and all those, I feel like we need to understand how they got there and what tools and what resources they had at their disposal to be able to produce those things. I feel like Sir touched upon a very important topic that doing what you can with what you have is this is the best thing you can do. Reaching out too far and trying to use tools or try to go into domains where you feel like you are A, stretching yourself financially, B, going in too deep where you have very little idea of what you're doing, I feel like those are tricky waters for you to be able to sustain yourself. I feel like if I were to just walk to this edge and jump across, none of you would be like, oh, we jumped, that's weird, but it's not crazy. But if I were to climb up on that scaffolding and just jump from there, everybody would be like, man, that's crazy. So there is a limit to how much you can push. My suggestion is to start low, start with whatever you can afford, and then eventually build up.
One last. एक क्वेश्चन और फिर सर फराज का क्वेश्चन. अच्छा, ये क्वेश्चन मेरे ख्याल से हर जहाँ भी बैठक होती है सवाल आ जाते हैं और आंसर पता भी होता है फिर भी आ जाता है, लेकिन आपकी राय जानना चाहेंगे वो ये कि ये कंपोजिट वगैरह के लिए यू प्रेफर एप्पल प्लेटफॉर्म और विंडोज़ प्लेटफॉर्म, और लाइक एनिमेशन करने के लिए यू प्रेफर, तो सॉफ्टवेयर वाइज आप प्रेफर करते हैं कि इस सॉफ्टवेयर के लिए ये प्लेटफॉर्म सही है एप्पल और विंडोज़, मैक और विंडोज़, और ग्रेडिंग के लिए नहीं, अगर मैं डिविंची में कर रहा हूँ तो ये सही है, अगर मैं आफ्टर इफेक्ट्स में कर रहा हूँ तो ये सही है, तो ये इस पे अपना एक्सपीरियंस कुछ है
जी. Again, a very good question. This has often been a debate about, again, comes back to what the gentleman asked about tools. So what tool do we use? I feel like, again, I have to come back to the same thing where a certain level of, or when a brand is attached to a tool and that brand creates the tool at such an exceptionally industry standard level, then you can't help but appreciate what it can do. But there's a barrier of entry. I feel like Apple has always been on the dictating side of telling people what to do. And this is, the square box that we've made, this is the software, and this is the amount of RAM that we'll give you. And, we don't minimize from the left, we minimize from the right, or whatever, however they want to do it. They have their own ways to, make those calls. But I feel like they bound you into a system and they optimize that system exceptionally well. Like, for example, if you have a specific task, like, for example, sir mentioned color grading, then you're essentially just living most of your, you're spending most of your time in DaVinci. DaVinci Resolve, because that's the industry standard. So you don't really need to jump from one software to another. So you can really be, you can have comfort in the fact that you can invest in a tool that will be that will upgrade and will be relevant in the next 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and then there won't be any disruptions. But there's a barrier of entry. When you walk towards the Windows side, it's much more like, I could open up the VCR back then. I feel like I can open up a Windows system, a PC. But I prefer to work in the PC because I have more control with whatever goes wrong. And I feel like as opposed to Mac users versus Windows, there's infinite amount of tinkerability that's available for Windows users. So my personal choice has always been Windows, but I have used Mac in the past, and I feel like there's a place for that as well. So to summarize, if you want maximum flexibility and affordability, and you don't really care about longevity that much, you can invest in a Windows system. But if you're tied into a system, you have a particular way of doing things, and you organize that way, I feel like that's a different person altogether. Then all those tools are also available in Mac. It's not that you're missing out when you go into Windows, but it's just a matter of how much you like to play around or keep it open-ended in Windows versus Mac.
Danish bhai, सवाल ये थोड़ा सा लंबा सवाल है. सवाल ये कि that here at Szabist in the media sciences we teach them, these students, 4 years और 4 साल की मेहनत, और पूरा point ये होता है कि इनमें aesthetic develop करें. So they start with drawing, they start with photography, design, और फिर eventually वो show out करता है इनके design campaigns में या इनकी फिल्मों में, documentaries में, animations में. And we know that you're sort of, self-taught. आप entirely जो भी आपका काम है वो सब self-taught. This is something we also talked about previously जब हम सर से client के office में बैठे थे. Question is, how do you develop aesthetic? Is that something you can develop, or is that something जो कि एक natural instinct होता है बंदे का कि या तो है या तो नहीं है? So can you really teach someone aesthetics? For example, ये सारे बच्चे या मैं खुद या आबिद भी, नबील भी, हम सब 4 साल पढ़ के आ रहे हैं और aesthetic अभी तक जो ना वो struggle ही होती है कि aesthetic वाइज सही लग रहा है नहीं लग रहा. तो natural एक call है या versus आप जो कि मतलब आप you're self-taught. So again, how do you find aesthetic?
Again, amazing question. Thank you for that, Fazbhai. So first, just to update, because we're all evolving as Homo sapiens and we're all evolving our literature. I think the term self-taught is a little too egocentric. I feel like it completely shifts the focus on the individual and just takes away from whatever other people have done. Like, I will not say that I've been self-taught in a way that I had paved my own way. I had mentors online. I was on YouTube when I was not in class. So I was always at the subject of whatever information anybody else could provide. Now, when it comes to aesthetic, I feel like that's something that is very subjective, and that's something that obviously there's a whole spectrum of what somebody can call really pretty and what somebody can call ugly. But I feel like whatever aesthetic you choose, whether there's no denying that there's a certain level of, let's first say, for ease of understanding, cinema level. When we say cinema level, we are automatically saying a lot of things below it. We mean that it encompasses, good framing, good lighting. There's important focus on storytelling. So we know what a still frame from a movie will say a lot more and a lot more effectively and pique your interest quicker than somebody, say, taking a snapshot on putting up a story on Instagram. So we do agree that there's levels to this. But how do you reach this aesthetic level is what Farazbhai is asking. The short answer is by just absorbing everything that you can. Learning there was a big slide that had, epic fail written on it. It's because I failed many times, but I've failed silently a lot of times. I've not been very loud, and that's something that I do believe, that when you're on stage or when you're presenting, whenever you're posting something, whenever you're grabbing people's attention, I'm not saying never do anything, but I'm saying feel like you've done enough for it to be worthy of you sharing with other people. So once you have that process of really absorbing something and trying something, absorbing something and trying something, getting feedback, you will eventually, just by pure trial and error, over a period of time, reach a position where you thought that others were at that level 10 years ago, without even knowing that you landed. So yes, some people are more gifted. Some people understand visuals, or they absorb visuals and visual language much more quicker than others. And that's something that either you're born with or you're not. But it's not, like I mentioned, this is not a race to who gets there first. It is that you provide value to whoever you can. If you are working with a local, say, non-profit that requires you to tell a story of a young kid who is, one of 10 kids in the house and is unable to afford education, their parents are unable to afford education, and the story is focused on, the child and how his future, what will his or her future be. At that point, you're not really looking at, is the child framed perfectly, in a light where it looks pretty, and at that point, the objective is for that story to come through. So I feel like, yes, we should be judging our work based on all those metrics of how good it looks on frame, how well it tells the story, how well we cut it together, pacing and everything. But I feel like I mentioned, we have to be realistic of where we are, who we're working for, and what our goals are. Because if we set out to make Avatar in our backyard in 5 days, you know what that's going to result in, right? So, yeah, you can train to, and there's a plethora of material out there. In today's day and age, if you can voice the fact that you don't know where to look, then you're not trying hard enough. Because we're in a day and age where without even moving an inch, you can have all the knowledge of the world without even moving. I mean, that's saying something. Because back in the day, we used to have people like, Nolan, Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, and all these people who would have to go to, a particular, local filmmaker, spend time with them, absorb what they were doing, had to manage their, schedules and tantrums and all those issues, the real world issues that they had to face, to get a moment so that they could be a fly on the wall and just see that set for, a moment. Now, today's day and age, it's pretty easy for us to, get to that level of access. So make an effort, I guess.
Danish Hasan, thank you so much for the Zap Talk.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
now I would like to call on stage our HOD, Sir Siklan Zaidi, to present a token of appreciation.
अरे सर क्या
सर ये कुछ token of appreciation.
Thank you. All right, before I leave, can you guys hear me? Yeah. So just as a last parting note, I know this was a lot of information to be able to, to infuse in like an hour. But I like to keep things positive because I feel like we're all moving forward. We all have our visions. We all have our goals. But I just like to reiterate that the last slide that I showed you guys is that do whatever, you feel like doing and you enjoy the process. Because I feel like all these questions will be answered, but the one thing that you can never take back is the missed opportunity of enjoying the moment and enjoying the process with whoever you are with and wherever you're going. So do enjoy the process.
Please stay seated as the Film Festival Session 1 will start shortly. Thank you.